The story begins in the early 20th century, an era defined by rapid industrialization and an obsession with the new. In 1898, Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium, a shimmering radioactive element that seemed to defy the laws of nature. It glowed with a pale celestial blue light and emitted a constant warmth. To the public of the 1910s and 20s, radium wasn't a hazard, it was a miracle. It was marketed as a liquid sunshine that could cure blindness, hysteria, and even old age. People drank Radithor, radium-infused water, as a health tonic. It was the ultimate luxury, and for a group of young women in New Jersey and Illinois, it was the key to a glamorous, high-paying job. But beneath the glow lay a terrifying reality that would eventually rewrite American labor laws and save countless lives in the decades to follow. Chapter 1. The Most Glamorous Job in the World. In 1917, as the United States entered World War I, the military needed luminous watches for soldiers to read in the dark trenches. The United States Radium Corporation, USRC, opened a factory in Orange, New Jersey. The job was simple: paint the tiny numbers on watch dials using a special glow-in-the-dark paint called Undark. The work was delicate, requiring a steady hand. The company hired teenage girls and young women, some as young as 14, paying them 3 times the average factory wage. To these girls, the factory was magical. The radium dust covered everything. By the end of the day, their clothes, their hair, and even their skin glowed. They became known as the Ghost Girls. They were so captivated by the glow that they would wear their best silk dresses to work so they would shimmer at the dance halls later that night. Some even painted their teeth with the radium paint to surprise their boyfriends with a glowing smile when the lights went down. The fatal instruction: lip, dip, paint. The camel hair brushes used to paint the dials would lose their shape after a few strokes. To keep the tips sharp enough for the tiny numbers, the supervisors taught the girls a specific technique: lip, dip, paint. Put the brush in your mouth to sharpen the point with your tongue, dip the brush into the radium-infused paint, then paint the dial. When the girls asked if the paint was dangerous, the managers assured them it was perfectly safe. In fact, they told the girls the radium would put roses in their cheeks. The dark irony. While the girls were encouraged to ingest the paint, the company's owners and scientists wore lead aprons and handled the radium with long tongs. They knew the danger. The girls did not. Chapter 2. The Disintegration. By the early 1920s, the roses in the girls' cheeks began to turn to a deathly pallor. The first signs of trouble were subtle: a persistent toothache, a sore jaw. One of the first to fall ill was Molly Maja. Her teeth began to ache, and her dentist pulled them one by one, but the holes wouldn't heal. Instead, they filled with pus and blackened ulcers. Soon, her entire jawbone began to decay. During one examination, her dentist tapped her jaw, and to his horror, the bone snapped like a dry twig. He was able to remove her entire lower jaw simply by lifting it out with his fingers. Molly died a gruesome death at age 24. The official cause of death listed by the company-controlled doctors: syphilis. This was a calculated move to shame the families and prevent further investigation. The science of the silent killer. Radium is a calcium mimic. Ingested, the human body cannot tell the difference between calcium and radium. The body takes the radium and deposits it directly into the bones. Once inside the bone structure, the radium continues to emit alpha radiation. It literally blasts the skeleton from the inside out, creating microscopic honeycombs in the bones. For the Radium Girls, their bones were becoming Swiss cheese. Their spines collapsed, their hips shattered, and their jaws, where the concentration was highest due to the lip pointing, simply disintegrated. Chapter 3: The Battle for the Truth. As more women fell ill, a young woman named Grace Fryer decided she wouldn't die in silence. Grace had worked in the New Jersey plant and watched her health vanish. She suffered from a crumbling spine and required a steel brace just to sit up. Grace spent 2 years looking for a lawyer. Most refused to take the case because USRC was a powerful corporation with deep ties to the government and the medical community. The company hired independent experts to examine the girls, who then lied to the victims, telling them they were in perfect health, while the experts filed secret reports to the company detailing their terminal status. The living dead take the stand. Finally, in 1927, a young lawyer named Raymond Berry took the case. Grace Fryer was joined by 5 other women: Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, and sisters Quinta McDonald and Albina Larice. They became known as the New Jersey Five. By the time the trial began, the women were so weak they couldn't even raise their hands to take the oath. They were labeled by the press as the Legion of the Damned. The USRC tried every delay tactic possible, hoping the women would die before the case reached a verdict. The public outcry was massive. Even Marie Curie herself, hearing of the story from France, sent a message of sympathy, though she admitted there was no known way to remove radium from the body once it was in the bone. The legacy of the glowing graves. The New Jersey Five eventually settled out of court in 1928, securing a payment that covered their medical bills and a small pension. It wasn't justice in terms of money, most of them died shortly after, but it was a landmark victory for workers' rights. The case established the legal precedent that companies are responsible for the long-term health of their employees. Occupational diseases, illnesses that take years to manifest, are valid grounds for lawsuits. Impact on World War II and the Manhattan Project. The tragedy of the Radium Girls directly influenced the safety protocols for the Manhattan Project. Because the Ghost Girls had unwittingly acted as human test subjects, scientists in the 1940s knew exactly how dangerous internal radiation exposure was. Without the data gleaned from the suffering of these women, the scientists building the atomic bomb might have handled plutonium and uranium with the same carelessness, potentially leading to thousands more deaths. The graves that still glow. Perhaps the most eerie fact of this story is that radium has a half-life of 1,600 years. In the towns of Orange, New Jersey, and Ottawa, Illinois, the Radium Girls are buried in lead-lined coffins. If you were to take a Geiger counter to their grave sites today, over 100 years later, the needles would still jump. Their bones are still hot, still emitting the same pale glow that they once thought was a sign of glamour and wealth. Why this story matters today. The Radium Girls represent the first major stand against corporate gaslighting. They were told they were crazy, they were told they were promiscuous via the syphilis lies, and they were told they were fine while their bones were breaking. Their bravery led to the creation of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. Every time you see a danger, hazardous material sign or a safety manual at a job site, you are seeing the legacy of the women who sharpened their brushes with their tongues so the world could have watches that glowed in the dark.